Welcome to the first ever episode of Anthony Meets. Following the huge success of the Celebrity Lockdown Live series, we just had to keep that momentum going and continue talking to fabulous people in their homes. And none any more fabulous than the first guest, Miss Vida LaFierce, all the way from the Isle of Man. Miss Vida, how are you?
Hello, I'm fantastic, very, very warm, and all made up with no place to go. How are you?
All made up with no place to go. What do you think? You're in my living room.
Yeah, I'm here. But of course, now I've got it all on. I want to get a drink and go out.
I know. Well, listen, I'm good, and of course, couldn't be any better because I'm getting the opportunity to chat with you. So yeah. I've got to start off with. I've been watching the videos. You've recently had Pride on the island, and it looked amazing.
It was fantastic. It's been a long time in the making, and it's been a long time coming. The Isle of Pride charity that was set up to do a lot of work for education and promoting, and also to have Pride itself, have worked so hard on this. And of course, it was supposed to happen last year, but got cancelled because of COVID. And then this year, we had another 2 lockdowns earlier on in the year. But the great thing about being an island is, once we eradicated COVID, we could sort of live freely. As long as we kept the borders restricted and kept the vaccination program up and everything, we could really get back to normal. So there's pretty much no masks and everyone can hug. And that worked great for Pride because it meant we could all really go for it. And that was fantastic. But it was enormous. And for a first Pride somewhere, it was really slickly done. Everyone really bought into it. We had some good high profile sponsors who helped us out a lot. And it was fantastic, and it was just the perfect day. So it was great. Can't wait to do it all again now.
It was beautiful to watch, and I was watching it obviously as people were videoing it live. I was watching it from the UK, and it brought me back to being at my first Prides in Belfast, and whenever we started off, there was probably a couple of hundred people going through the city centre, and it wasn't a particularly warm reception from everybody. But I remember that exhilarating feeling, that first time of being able to walk up that street and sort of claim, this is who I am.
Amazing, isn't it?
Oh, wow. Just wow. But watching you, I should say how we got to know each other was there was a venue on the island. There was a bit of controversy. They perhaps weren't being as welcome as they could have been to the lovely LGBTQI community.
Well, you know what we're like. We're gobbies, so we talk back.
But what I loved about it is, because obviously I got to know you that way, but then I noticed from watching the videos and watching the updates that pretty much the entire island just came together and created Pride.
Yeah, it was like, I've actually been part of a few groups that have had a go at it before, and something's always got in the way, or something's not quite happened. But then I remember first time I met Claire, who was the one who sort of really got the ball rolling. I remember the first coffee with her, like, this is the guy who's going to do it. Like, this is the one. This is the moment. And I was right. Like, it happened. Like, we managed to get this brilliant team together. And I've never seen a committee or a group of people who are so passionate and so devoted, but no matter how stressful things got, everyone was just full of joy and kindness, and no one ever snapped at anyone else. There was never any friction. Everyone was just happy and cheerful, and that's the great thing. Obviously, we were all a bit disheartened last year with COVID cancelling it, but I remember sat right here having a Zoom conversation with them. I said, right, it's not a loss. It's a disappointment, but like, when you think of what we've gained, we'd had a corporate launch event to sort of onboard some sponsors and sort of build up some general interest. So we'd had that. We'd done some great networking. I think the most important thing was we'd formed some pretty good friendships between each other as well. So I'm not taking that as any kind of loss at all. And I said to them, it just gives us an extra year to make an even better event, which I think we pulled off. And it's fantastic. The relationships that have been formed from working on it together, and it's a wonderful group. And I'm so proud to be I'm a very small part of it, but I'm just so proud to be a part of it.
Gorgeous. I can't imagine you're that small a part, to be fair. I mean an involvement, by the way. But
Hair is a big part too.
but so tell us a bit about what events were there. Obviously you had the parade, but what else was going on?
Yeah, sadly, we got restricted on the parade because there's a massive work on our promenade and our capital going on, which is massively behind schedule. So we couldn't have the full pride we wanted. So the authorities restricted us to 50 people. I have a feeling we might have been ever so slightly over that, but it was basically kind of an invitation only. And we had this wonderful lady, Mary, who sort of designed it as a walking art installation called The Long Walk to Pride. And it was fab. We got the Channel Islands Pride, Guernsey sent us their 50-meter rainbow flag. So that was the big centerpiece. And it looked magnificent coming down our main high street. So there was like the parade there, which I'm pretty sure we were over the 50-person limit, but it just, for a first parade, that's pretty fantastic anyway. So we went from Villiers Square, which is one end of our main high street, through the main high street to the Villa Marina Gardens, which is where Pride was, around the front of the villa, into their grounds, and made a big entrance in there. The Villa Marina Gardens, like big grassed area in front of our main concert venue. The concert venue itself, the 4 pillars outside, they'd actually given us permission to paint in rainbow. The front paving was a giant rainbow. There were also rainbow lights on the top of it. It looked magnificent. If you get a chance to check out Isle of Pride's social media, you'll see how gorgeous it was. Then there was a big main stage. There was food, loads of food places, like local eateries. A bar, obviously important, a big beer thing. There was charity stalls. There was a Pride merch stall with one of the lovely 3 Legs of Man, which is our logo. They have these lovely pins done in rainbow, which I forgot to get one of. So I've got one of those on order. And I should have got hold of one to show you, but they're absolutely gorgeous. So we're sort of educating, getting ready. And there was also, very importantly, a family tent, which I think is something that should be at Pride. Pride is about educating and understanding, and it's a family thing. I was saying the other day how people sort of confuse Pride with some big orgy thing. They think, oh, in front of the children and whatever. It's like, no, it's not that. It's a party. It's a celebration of love and equality and everything. So it is a family thing. So there was craft things going on in the family tent. I did a drag queen story time thing, which was terrifying but really fun. And there was a fashion show for kids. They could make their own outfits.
Wow.
There was all sorts going on in there all day. That was I think that went on till about 8 or 9 in there, and then the main stage went on right till midnight, I think.
Oh.
And then there was a few after parties dotted about, which got pleasantly messy. So
I could just imagine.
there was tons of life. There was I think pretty much every photographer on the island was there. Like my friend Steve Babb, he's like an amazing photographer. He was definitely there because I've seen some fab pictures of him, of his, and I've seen pictures of him when he put the camera down and did a fire breathing act, which I had no idea he could do.
Oh, hello.
And there's some fabulous pictures of it. It's like, okay, I have no idea how you got into that, but well done. There was a whole group of people doing poise and fire breathing and hoops and stuff in front of the main stage. I think pretty much like any LGBT band was on. There's such a wide variety. There was a rainbow choir put together, which I got a sneak peek at a video of one of their rehearsals. They apparently had to stop taking members because they expected maybe 10 people to turn up. And suddenly there was 100 of them. And
wow.
they had to stop taking people. They were magnificent. And they did a couple of ABBA songs and just some brilliant stuff. And it was fabulous. There was a preview of an upcoming show that's in our local theatre. There was the Revelettes, who are like a 40s style harmony girl group, kind of like the Andrews Sisters, but with modern music. The Bulls, and me, of course.
Yes, I was just going to say, didn't you sing?
I did. I had 3 numbers at different points of the day, which meant outfit changes, of course. So I had 5 outfits throughout the day, I think, because you can't be seeing the same thing twice.
Yeah.
So there was a rainbow dress with these big pink wings for the parade, and there was a little purple one with this hair for opening number. I was very, very pleased and terrified to have been asked to do the opening number, because the first singer on stage at the first ever Pride on the Isle of Man, that was a lot of responsibility and quite a big thing for me. So I was terrified. I remember getting up on the stage and it felt a lot bigger when you were on it. So you got up there and it was like, wow. And I'd seen it was quite busy when we came in with the parade, but like this is like half an hour later, it suddenly got really busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was of a height where I could see over the crowd and how far it went. And I was just like, oh my God. My mouth went so dry and I got slightly tongue-tied, but it was wonderful. And it was a very emotional day. But after spending 2 hours doing my makeup, I wasn't going to let myself cry. The night before, I had a little bit of a cry. I went down to see it all being constructed, and suddenly it was real rather than just on paper. And it was that was emotional. It was like, wow, this is actually happening. So I sat in the garden and was sort of like, woo! And then I remember getting home being really nervous at the scale of it and sobbing into a takeout the night before. But happy sobbing. So
it really is. It's amazing. And I couldn't help thinking, have you ever watched the movie To Wong Fu with Love?
Of course.
Is it not like the Strawberry Social? Is it not the Strawberry Social?
I think it might. Yeah, I think the Strawberry Social looked tame compared. It was wonderful. It was just, and we were blessed with fantastic weather on the day as well, because it's, I think, in the UK as a whole, but especially on the Isle of Man, you plan something fantastic outdoors and you're always a bit like, what if the weather turns out? But we were blessed with stunning weather. It felt like we were on holiday somewhere. Yeah. It was great. But that was that. I think it was that put everyone in a good mood. And thankfully, there was a little bit of a breeze in the afternoon, which stopped anyone passing out, which was good. But it was the perfect day. Weather, entertainment, food, booze, everything. It was perfect.
Fabulous. So I'm quite interested actually in finding out a bit more about you, because you were or are the founding first ever drag queen on the Isle of Man. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we think so. I think I was the first working queen on the island, and it's sort of a bit of a badge of honor, really. It's nice. I sort of didn't. I came to drag through depression, which I'm very, very open about.
Okay.
Because I think we should definitely talk about mental health more. So it was, oh God, about 7, 8, maybe 10 years ago, I basically hit rock bottom, and I was not in a good place. And while I was off, I started playing with makeup, and it was around the time that RuPaul's Drag Race was really becoming big. I think it was season 5 was the first season I watched, and I was like, God, this looks fun. And I went over to Gran Canaria on a little holiday with some friends, and we made friends with a bunch of the drag queens there. And I was like, I really want to do this. I'd always wanted to be a singer, so I was always a singer first. And then I'd kind of, it's like when you grow up, people are like, oh, it's nice to have dreams and all this. And, now you get a real job. And so there was that. And then you grow up, and it's really sad. You put your dreams on a back burner and often never get back to them. But when I started having to rebuild my life, from the bottom up again, I thought, well, you know what? I don't want to let go of this. And then I realized, like, I never wanted to be a singer in the sense of a man standing wearing a suit and a tie, singing boring songs. That is not me at all. So then it was like, well, there's something missing. and I'd always grown up like watching Cher and Tina Turner, Madonna, Kylie, people who know how to put on a show
Yeah,
rather than
yeah.
singing. I was like, I think it's very unfair that as a boy I only get to wear pants. So it was making friends with some of the drag queens and seeing Drag Race becoming a thing. I started playing with makeup when I was off with the depression, and it started like painting this armor on. Really started to sort of, I started to stand up straight again. I started to feel better again, and it was brilliant. And it suddenly I realized it was the missing link with my singing. So I sort of got myself together a bit, and we did one of my 21st birthdays in I'm not going to say the real number, but
one of those special occasions.
Well, despite my busy schedule, I still managed to be 21. So yeah. So it was a birthday. I decided, I'm gonna have a drag themed party. So a bunch of us all dragged up and went down to the club we used to hang out in, which is the said club with the controversy.
Yes.
And we went there, and if I look at pictures now from that night, I'm like, no. But also I was kind of pleased with it for first drag. So we went down there, we had a great time. Then I thought, I don't want to stop doing this. I want to carry on doing this. And so a couple of weeks later, I think it was, I did it again for just, to go down karaoke. And one of the guys who was one of the DJs in there said, why don't you co-host with me? And then do a few numbers, and then it turned into me having my own nights in there where I would DJ and play music, and we'd have loads of fun, and suddenly more and more people were coming in, and it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And then I left there about 4 years ago. I mean, it's quite nice to walk straight into effectively a residency. So not everyone gets to do that. So I'd done a couple of years there, and it was time to move on. There was also a lot of issues with the place, as of course the public now know.
Yeah.
But at the time I said to people like, oh, I've left to pursue other projects or for personal reasons. And as soon as I left, I found I was getting offers all over the place for better paid work and theatre stuff. Like I've joined up with a few years ago with the local burlesque group, who are called Queens and Tans IOM, and they are a fabulous group of performers.
Wow.
I actually knew a couple of them before that, and we've done a few big shows together, full theatrical things, and they're great to work with. So we sort of like drift, like I'll do my own thing for months at a time, then we'll do a show together, then we'll all go and do our own things, and sometimes a couple of us will get together and do an event, or it's brilliant. It's just like a collective of performers, which seems to be gradually growing, which is brilliant because there's all sorts now, and I'm not alone as a drag artist on the island anymore, which is quite exciting.
So that's what I was going to ask. Have you kind of become like the mummy now? Are you like the mother drag queen now?
I'm not old enough to be a mother, but I've got a drag daughter, and apparently I'm old enough to have a drag daughter. But she's a proper little powerhouse of a performer. Her name's Mathia Lahore, and she is a cracking dancer. Like she's brilliant. And there's Fenella Beach. Mathia and Fenella are actually doing a show with me in about 3 weeks' time in the Outback, which is one of our local nightclubs. They are both absolutely brilliant. And there's Rugula Rue, she's a comedy queen. But Pride weekend, I've seen a video of, I couldn't actually be there, but I've seen a video of this amazing emotional number. I was like, that is the queen I always knew you could be.
Yeah.
Keep doing that. And it was like, I think being the oldest, most experienced,
It's wisdom, darling. It's wisdom.
Exactly. I feel a degree of, I care for each of them a lot, and I feel very protective if I ever hear anyone say anything bad about them, which, to be fair, doesn't happen often at all. But if I ever hear anyone even like say anything or look at them in the wrong way, I'm like, no. But I'm a fierce advocate of each of them, because the great thing about all the drag artists on the Isle of Man, including our very first drag king now, Vincent Finery, who is a
It's like you've done.
drag.
You went to bed and just woke up and ticked every single box. You've got
It's
Pride, you've got
absolutely
drag queens, you've
amazing.
got drag kings.
Yeah, it's super, because there's starting to be regular events, which is great. So we have the Rainbow Night on the first Saturday of every month that I host in the Saddle, and then at the Bridge on the quay just down the road every Thursday is a drag race viewing party. And they've also just launched a fabulous new Mexican menu, so we can get together, watch Drag Race, have Mexican.
Fabulous.
And then Fenella Beach hosts that, and I am so jealous that I didn't think of that drag name first. Because out in the very west of the island, there is a small hidden beach called Fenella Beach. And I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
But she's amazing. She's an art house queen. So she does very elaborately painted faces and
Cool.
very intricate routines. Where last week there was one where she does all her own mixes herself, and it was clips of Maggie Thatcher speeches over the music of Lizzo and Britney, which is something I never thought I'd see. But absolutely amazing. But the great thing about all of us is people are like, oh, you're all competing with each other. It's like, no, not at all.
No.
Because we're all so different that we know we're not competing with each other. So we're such a small community, why not build each other up and work together? So there's no competition at all, because we've got singing queens, dancing queens, lip syncers, poetry readers, everything. We're not competing, and we get far much more out of it by working together and supporting each other, which is what I love about our drag scene here.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything's happening really positively at the moment, and I just in awe of how quick things are moving. But coming out on the island when you were 1 or 2 years younger than what you are now, how was that?
It was different. It was, yeah, that was a while ago, and it's wow. It was a lot tougher for me. There was a friend of mine was saying to me, we compared notes. He went through high school about a decade after me, and he came out and got more popular.
Yeah.
Whereas I got spat at in the corridors, and you know, all sorts. I've got like a little scar on my elbow somewhere, a tiny little scar there.
Right.
That's from a bike accident, but there, where someone set fire to my school jumper while I was in it.
They set fire to you?
Yeah, and I got in trouble for putting the flames out on his face. But it was like, I was like year 7, and it was like I was getting like bullied for being gay before I even knew what gay was. And it was like, you know, that's another thing that needs stamping out, is using the word gay as a synonym for bad.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you'd hear in the playground, oh, it's so gay. And it's like, well, actually, it's not gay at all. But, you know, I am. But it was like, before I even knew what gay was, I was getting bullied for it. But there was, kids are cruel.
Yeah.
Like I was a short, fat, ginger kid with goofy teeth and glasses. So I didn't really stand a chance at all.
Right.
And I was also the son of 2 police officers, and for some reason I got bullied for that as well. It's like, well, their career choice isn't my fault.
Yeah.
But kids often will pick on you for just about anything, but I don't think kids are inherently cruel. And I think it's probably,
well, they only know what they've been told, right?
That's the thing. I think it's only high school that they become cruel sometimes. And I think that's because of what they've seen. It was like, if you'd seen the family tent at Pride with a lot of younger kids, like they were just in awe. They weren't judging. It was like, they were like, wow, like this giant fairy tale lady.
Yeah.
And no one is born knowing how to hate. Like that's something that's picked up over a few years. So I think high school was like, primary school was mostly okay, but high school was a pain. But it was when I got, I think about 14, 15, certainly 16, when it suddenly occurred to me, oh, hang on, I'm 6 foot. Like, why am I taking this?
Yeah.
And it was like, and also I found my mouth and got gobby. And then about 14, 15, I actually properly came out. So if someone actually turned around, you're gay, I'm like, yeah, and like, there was less hiding it then. I think when you were trying to hide that aspect of yourself, it's more terrifying. But suddenly when you're out, there's that relief. But there was, it's not that long ago, really. We're talking late 90s, early 90s, and there were places I would have to avoid at night,
Hmm.
and I'd be looking over my shoulder if I was walking home at night. Even sometimes in the day, some places I would be looking over my shoulder, and it was terrifying. I
Mm.
remember one of my best friends and I being beat up in the street. Um, he got worse, but it was because I was wearing nail varnish, and it was, I just couldn't believe that things like that happened, like in
Yeah.
daylight, especially on our little island that you would think was safe. And the island did have a reputation as being quite backwards in that way, but I think over the last few years it's really rocketed ahead,
So
and I think we're
that's what
ahead of
I'm
the curve.
interested in. So can you kind of pinpoint a time when everything sort of changed, or what happened that the attitude turned around?
Don't actually know. I think there's been a slow acceleration of development. It's sort of started off slowly, but the more momentum that change has got, the more change, and the more, the more change has happened in a quicker time. So I think now that we've got Pride, I think it was finally the right time. And there's no particular moment I can think of when things changed, but we have there was the equal marriage thing about 4 years ago, I think. We also had a gay chief minister, who, he never officially came out, but it was like everyone knew,
Yeah.
and that was quite nice to have someone in a position of authority, because representation is very important. And I don't know, it was last year or the year before, our current chief minister issued an apology for the troubles in the 90s, where there were protests. It's actually the anniversary next week, 30-year anniversary of, we have a day called Emerald, which is National Day, and we have the oldest continuous running parliament in the world, and it meets on a hill in the middle of the island. It's like a little sort of stepped hill in the middle,
Okay.
and it's like a big ceremony, very traditional. It's really cool to go and watch. But 30 years ago this year, a guy called Alan Shea walked up. It's one of the rights of the citizens of the island to present petitions of Greece to the government, and it was to legalise homosexuality. Up until then, it had been illegal on the island, and it's quite iconic. He wore a set of pajamas that were painted to look like a concentration camp uniform,
Okay.
with a pink triangle on it with the three legs of man, our flag on it.
Did I
And the serial
watch
number
an
was a,
interview of him on Isle of Man TV?
yes,
Yes.
yeah. He's been quite active in the media the last few weeks with Pride coming up and with it being the anniversary.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating story. There's some old documentary footage, I believe, on YouTube with actual footage of that day,
Wow.
and it's unbelievable to watch and to think that I was alive then. See, I'm giving my age away without even realizing.
This is my investigative journalism, Miss Fierce.
Yeah, it was, to actually think that that was going on while I was alive,
Hmm.
and to think all this change has happened in my lifetime is huge.
Hmm.
But I can't pick a particular moment. Obviously, that was a huge moment for getting homosexuality legalized, because I think it was the following year it did become legal. I think the UK government, basically, we've got our own government, but we're a crown dependency. I think there was something about, they were like, you change it or we will, and it went through. But somewhere along the lines, things have accelerated, and we've actually been ahead of the curve
Yeah.
on equality for some things. Like, I think with equal marriage, I think we were a little bit ahead.
Yeah.
We've got the Equality Act, which is already implemented and going strong. I think there's bits of legislation that we have where we are ahead of some places, which is good. But the islands worked very, very hard over the last few years to sort of wipe the old reputation as sort of a backwards little
Yeah.
island, and it's seen like as very progressive, very inclusive, and a haven of equality.
Hmm.
And it's rightly so, which is why when this nightclub kicked off and were very discriminatory, it was such a shock. But it was the reactions from the wider community, not just the LGBTQ plus community, that all pounced on it and was like, this behavior is not acceptable. It was like, wow, things really have changed, because just a few years ago we'd have been alone on that. But now other people are coming and saying this is not acceptable.
I should say at this point, obviously the venue would say that they weren't acting in a discriminatory manner.
Well, yeah.
But they're not here to defend themselves, so I have to say that. But certainly I reported on it, and that, you know, that'll be up to other people's opinions as to whether or not they think. Of
course. But I think that the fact that the wider community shows such support is a testament to how far we've come. I think that's the great thing. And when you saw like how busy Pride Day was and how many families, but I feel like I saw the whole island there. I think I saw
it kind of looked like the whole island was there, and a couple of other islands as well.
Yeah, it was huge, but it was full of families. It was like my dad and my stepmom came down. My dad was wearing one of my merch t-shirts, which was bizarre. It was like, wow. So, you know, my big, very butch dad wearing a rainbow t-shirt with his drag queen son on it. Brilliant. And like my mum was there with our neighbor, and they brought our dog, who did not enjoy the fanfare that I walked into. But my dog thought the party was for him, because everyone made such a fuss out of him. He's a little miniature dachshund. He's
gorgeous.
But everyone made such a fuss of him. He thought it was his day. But like to have like so many of my family there watching, so many other families there.
Yeah.
And we had to factor in extra time to get anywhere, because I had to stop for photos so much. And I loved it. And I absolutely, someone actually said to me, oh God, doesn't it get annoying when people start taking pictures? I'm like, no, not at all. Because they've enjoyed what I'm doing, and I love talking to them.
Yeah.
And like, that's brilliant. That's one of the big reasons why you do it, is, you know, being on the stage is part of it. But like, you know, when you see the smiles on people's faces that you've put there, it's like, yeah, it makes it all worth it. Because drag's hard work, and like a lot of people think you just hoof on a wig and throw some makeup at your face, but like drag is hard work and pain, especially in the summer when you're wearing like 3 waist cinches, all this hair and all this makeup. It gets really hot.
To be fair, that's my usual outfit just for going to bed, let alone getting on stage. 3 pairs of Spanx and
you know what I mean though, like even going out is you know, you couldn't do that 24/7, but like your feet are killing you after the night in drag, but seeing people smile and seeing them enjoy it makes it all so much worth it. And there's when people ask questions as well, like oh, so do you want to be a woman? I'm like, no, I'm a drag queen, this is for entertainment purposes. And then we'll have a conversation about the differences and stuff, for like you know, are your boobs real, or how do you do this with your makeup?
You know, that's a very good point, because you know, we're all very vocal, and we're all fighting for our rights and our place in the world, and we should be doing that. We shouldn't, we shouldn't have to fight for it, but we are fighting for it. But I do often think about our straight counterparts, and how it must be difficult for people as well, because those who don't wish to offend and those who don't wish to discriminate or exclude, they don't always know what to say or how to do.
Well, that's the thing.
And they fear then getting attacked or called homophobic, or
there's no handbook. But I always, unless I'm literally about to step out and start singing, I always encourage questions, because if they're asking questions, it's showing a willingness to understand rather than make assumptions. And I'm happy, like, to, one of my favorite bits of a night is either in between sections of a show or at the end of a show, getting to come out and just talk to people. Like, I love that. And if they've got questions, bring them. You know, it's fun, and it gets to, it's a subtle way of doing that educating bit that Pride is all about, because people naturally fear what they don't understand.
Of course,
And
you'll never change something from standing outside and shouting it at it.
Exactly.
right? You got to get in amongst it,
Absolutely.
right?
And it's all about spreading some happiness and spreading some love.
Yeah,
And that's the weird thing, is that the people who are on the outside now, who I think are in the minority, the ones who don't want to tolerate and understand, I think they are a minority now.
yeah,
Um, you know, it's kind of sad, but you know, if you don't want to tolerate and understand us, you don't have to. That's your business. But like, I think that's born of not understanding. And like, just come and talk to us. Like,
yeah,
you know, and we are all about accepting and equality. So like, no matter how, you know, stuck in your ways you are, we'll accept you.
yeah,
And you know, we're happy to help, you know, explain things and educate, and through understanding we can all come together. I don't believe that the fight for equality and the fight to achieve it and to maintain it, because it's got to be maintained, achieving it isn't enough.
mm,
Equality is something that you have to nurture and look after. I don't think that's the fight of a select few. I think that's everyone's responsibility.
yeah.
And
Well, I
equality is there
remember
for everyone.
actually, I remember having a conversation with somebody not that long ago, and they said, "Well, what do you need pride for? So you've all got your rights now." And so, taking aside the whole global issues and everything else, but I explained to them, like, yes, I can legally get married, but I would still be worried about holding my partner's hand in a restaurant.
Absolutely. And like, no one should, like, what are they so
Yeah,
afraid of? Like, why is love such a thing to be afraid of? It's not. With all of the negative things and the pain and the fear and the suffering going on in the world, if people object to a display of affection, that says a lot more about them than anyone else.
yeah,
But I think that's the thing. It's about normalizing and about representation. It's like, we're not going anywhere. We've always been there throughout history. We're just finally getting to be
same.
accepted now.
Mm,
But I think, you know, it's love is not something that anyone should be objecting to. There is enough pain in the world.
yeah,
Like, we all need to be coming together and understanding each other. And I think that events like Pride, of course, we get the whole, oh, when straight Pride. It's just like, well, be thankful you don't need one.
yeah,
But I think, you know, it's about, you know, every day is straight Pride. But like, also, when we have Pride, that's for you straight people too.
yeah,
Like, we're celebrating each other. We are trying to bring about a world where differences are celebrated rather than feared. And that's where humans will become a lot happier,
right.
is when we can celebrate our differences instead of fearing them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, I mean, I touched on it earlier whenever, you know, my first Pride was 90 something or other. Um, and in Belfast. And I remember, you know, I can remember going through the town. There were some cheers and some celebrations, but lots of people were shouting really horrible slurs. I'll not say them, but I know that you could imagine the
Yeah.
list. And like I said, there's probably maybe a couple of hundred of us at max, right? Which in Belfast is not a lot of people. And then now, whenever you look at Pride in Belfast, it's something like, I think it's 20 or 30,000 people attend it, right?
I
And
want to go back to Belfast at
that's
some
what
point.
Pride does. That's what it does. It
It
builds and it builds
grows,
and it
it
builds.
grows.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you want to be part of something like that? Because
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I've only been to, I think, 2 Prides in the UK, or maybe two or three in the UK,
Yeah.
and a couple in other places. But I don't know if it's the same at everyone, but certainly what we got with ours was this atmosphere of just pure joy. Everyone was so happy to be there, and, you know, to be accepted and to be accepting.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was just so happy. And it's a special feeling, a Pride festival. It's not like anything else, but it's just this glimpse into the utopia that we could have.
Yeah.
But I
I
definitely want
kind
to
of,
do Belfast
it's almost
again.
like a rite of passage or a bar mitzvah or a
Yeah,
baptism
it
almost,
is.
or yeah.
And there's almost like your soul breathes this little sigh of like, ah,
Yeah.
like, I'm here, like,
Yeah.
and it's okay.
Yeah.
And that's what was so good. But the thing, like, you had parents coming along to support their kids, or like their grown-up kids in my case.
Yeah.
And like, that's something very special there, seeing like all of that and all of the love that was out there. It's really amazing. I just want to keep that amount of love flowing through the island for like the rest of the year, and see how much we can snowball Pride as well and make it
Yeah.
bigger and bigger and bigger. I think when the borders reopen, hopefully in time for next year's Pride, I think it'll be bigger. And I think
well, I'm coming, and I'm bringing full entourage with me. I'm going to be there.
It's gonna be so good.
I'm staying in your house as well, by the way.
Well, hopefully I'll actually have one by then. Well, if all goes well, like, and well, I should have a single out in about a month, and then
yeah, tell me about the single.
Well, yeah, well, if all goes well, I could even have a mansion by then. Who knows? But yeah, I've been sort of writing some songs for a good few years. I actually very recently found a notepad from when I was about 16, 17 of lyrics I'd written, and obviously just put away, never did anything with. But I'm actually looking at some of them now, thinking, how can I rework this? And some of them weren't bad. So I'm looking at bits I can take. The first single is called Heels, and I'm aiming for the kind of song people would put on just as they're getting ready to go out.
Oh yes.
It's a self-empowerment anthem. The chorus is like, my heels, was it mine? Gonna raise me up before you judge, better take a walk in my heels. And it's like, so it's sort of self-empowerment, about building yourself up. And there is like a little reference to my depression in there, and like back stronger than before. And it's but it's that hook of like, before you judge, better take a walk in my heels, and my heels don't need nothing from you. And so it's a fun song.
It sounds
it's a definite like, it's a definite shoulders and head back. Yeah,
baby.
So it's a definite getting ready to go out song. And then I've got a couple of other ones that we're working on. I want to get this one finished first, then I'll take the time to work on the others. But I like to dip my hands into a lot of projects at a time. So I've been working on a cookbook for years and years and years, which is starting to really sort of look quite workable now. I don't know if it's the first drag queen cookbook, but it's certainly one of the first.
Well, I interviewed a New York queen actually, and she has a cocktails book.
Ooh,
really
excellent.
good actually. Yeah.
It's like, if you're coming to me for diet food, you're going to be disappointed, because there's no diet food. It's one of the reasons I can justify staying curvy, because like, nobody would trust my cooking if I was skinny.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, that's a project that's more of a passion project. That one. It's just because I love cooking, and I want to share some recipes, and why not put a drag spin on it?
Why not have a drag cookery show, TV show on the Isle of Man TV?
Well, I've done a couple of food things on YouTube. Over lockdown, I decided to do some YouTube stuff. And I did a chocolate almond martini that people keep telling me is gorgeous. And I did a couple of Indian recipes on there. And it was just a bit of fun. So I thought I might as well carry on with that project. So obviously writing is a thing as well. So I've been doing articles for an old employer for content for their website, which has been a lot of fun, and it's kept my writing skills sharp over the last year.
Yeah.
And it's kept a little bit of money coming in so I can afford makeup and wigs. So obviously gigs went away, but I still needed to buy new things. But it was just another way of keeping busy. And I like to sort of develop skills. If there's something I want to have a go to, for some reason I've not managed to learn something yet, but if there's something I want to learn, I'll sort of, if I can find the time, I'll take time to really go for it. So I just like, I can't sit still. Like, I just like to do things.
No, well, don't ever. I always fear that if you sit still long enough, they'll bury you. So don't ever stop moving.
And it's always handy to have extra skills to fall back on as well. Like, I'm a very, very curious person. So I remember I used to work nights, and I used to really annoy my night partner. So I was like, so what's this? What does it do? What's it? Just like, you don't need to know. If the alarm on it goes off, you phone this person, they deal with it. I'm like, but what does it do? And why does it do that? And what's it connected to? It's like, you don't need to know. I'm like, but I want to know.
Yeah.
And I've noticed when we're in the studio as well, like, I'll be looking over his shoulder, and I'll be like, so what's this? How does this work? What does this do? And he must get so annoyed with me, but he explains everything to me. And he never talks to me like I'm stupid. And I was terrified when I started working with actual musicians
Yeah.
that they would look down on me for not knowing everything and not being able to read music. And I thought, they're all going to look down on me. It's going to be terrible. But I found, like, particularly Jip that I'm working with in the studio, he's so supportive, and he will go slow for me and like explain things. And I think on the island, there's a fantastic arts community here.
Right.
And I think people of the Isle of Man are, I would say 99.9% of them are brilliant, fantastic, kind people.
Yeah.
But especially the arts community. Like, if you're looking for help on something, or, you know, you'll find the arts community very warm, very kind. It's going to be very exciting when you get over here.
Yeah, so I'm coming. So tell me, what should I expect when I come to visit?
Well, there's going to be lots of booze.
Yeah.
People joke that we are 80,000 alcoholics clinging to a rock, and it's not far from the truth. But no, there's we have a couple of theatres, so there's not like we haven't got our own West End or anything, but we've got a couple of theatres. There is a huge number of local bands all over the place. We were saying just the other day that I think per head the Isle of Man has more talent than anywhere else I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, with the exception maybe of Vegas
and Belfast.
But, yeah, well, yes. I've been to Belfast once, and I really want to go back because the shopping was brilliant. They had a gorgeous theatre there, the Waterfront Theatre.
Yeah.
I love that place.
Well, my claim to fame with that is, many hundreds of years ago, I used to be a model, and we did the first fashion show at the Waterfront Hall. It was a big deal. It was a big deal.
I went to a dance festival there once. There was the Manx Contemporary Youth Dance Company entered a competition. We were dreadful. No, we weren't that bad. It was an interesting time. But yeah, I'd love to do Belfast again. But yeah, I often say that, like, the Isle of Man per head has more talent than anywhere else. So you'll get a chance to see, like, the whole shebang, from like metal bands, punk bands, folk bands, all sorts. Drag queens, obviously, drag kings. So there'll definitely be some fun things going on while you're here. And if not, we just kind of make the party wherever we are.
I love that. I love
There's
that.
always something going on.
Yeah.
So there'll be an event of some kind to attend. So
yeah,
it'll be great.
Fabulous. Well, Miss Vida LaFierce, it has been absolutely gorgeous chatting with you.
So much fun.
You're just beautiful.
I'm tortured because I can smell all these lovely food smells coming downstairs.
Listen, I wish you every success with everything that's happening. Do keep us up to date with the single. We'll, of course, be very happy to
I'm hoping it's going to be finished in the next few weeks, because I can't wait to share it with people. It's been something I've been waiting to do for years and years and years. So to get to finally do it is very exciting.
Well, you keep us posted and we'll let everybody know. And I shall see you in August. Thank you very much, Miss Fierce.
That's going to be awesome. Thank you so much. It's great to speak to you. Mwah.